Writing prompt: in the future, when totalitarian governments are the norm, every newborn is injected with a serum known to the people as fear. This serum shuts down the fight part of your brain, leaving you only with flight. For one child, fear did not take effect. My parents were the first to notice something wasn't right with me. Stubbornness was still a trait among toddlers, even after the mandatory implementation of the neural inhibitor fear. But it went so much further with me. I wasn't just stubborn. There was outright defiance in my words. It scared them. Later, it also scared teachers and classmates. People would watch my every move, wary and untrusting. I never had a girlfriend. Everyone was too scared to have a normal conversation with me, but the girls especially found ways to be cruel without an outright confrontation. Fear repressed the instinctual fight half of the fight or flight response. But the cold and calculating devastation of planned cruelty proved not only possible, but a honed weapon in our society. I tried to fit in, tried desperately for years as soon as I was old enough to realize how different I was. But there is a reason the government used a drug like fear to repress the fight instead of more old-fashioned ways, like conditioning or force. Instincts can't be fought. They come out at times, despite the most valiant efforts. Distrust led to suspicion, suspicion led to resentment, resentment led to hate. The cold shoulder in high school led to outright prejudice by the time I needed a job. Colleges and workplaces all required background checks, and everyone who ever met me was more than happy to freely discuss my shortcomings. My temper. My bursts of anger. That very treatment fueled my anger, honing it into something stronger, more lasting. By the time I turned 25, still living in my childhood room and never having kissed a girl, my entire core was polished rage. I hated them all, the people who turned me into this monster. They didn't do it because they genuinely hated me, but because I reflected everything they lost with fear. A walking reminder of the repression in this world. After I went on my 1000th job interview, I snapped. I reached across the desk to the sniveling man giving the interview and grabbed him by the collar. "You are going to give me this job. I will work here, and you will call me sir. If you don't, I will hurt you. I will come back here every day and hurt you. I will follow you to your family's home. You can never escape me." I watched his legs move and his arms push away. The instinct to run from me kicked in, but I held tight. He almost choked himself with his own collar as I held it. But he relented. And like that, I had a job. I walked out of the building with a new resolve to improve my life. I walked into the nearest bank, ready to open my first account since I'd soon have money to deposit. As I walked in, I recognized a few faces of people who knew me. I stepped into line and heard a flurry of whispers concealed behind cupped hands. By the time I reached the counter, they asked me to leave. Now I knew my own power. I wouldn't leave. I only wanted a checking account, but before I realized it, fury overflowed in me again. I demanded everything people like them denied me, stolen from my life. They agreed, handing over cash and account slips showing bank transfers. Even if they closed the accounts once I left, I still felt vindicated in a small way. But the bank employees fought back in their own way. They called the peace enforcers while they filled my pockets with money. The peace enforcers were the children of other peace enforcers, set aside a birth to take over the same job, so they were exempt from the fear injection everyone else received. Even though they still possessed the instinct to fight, it hadn't been honed in them as it had in me. Generations of a complicit population left them confused and unsure how to even approach me. They were only trackers chasing those who ran. They'd forgot how to fight. I left quite a mess that day at the bank. I often look back and think about how I could have done that better. Really, all of those deaths weren't necessary. I've improved since then. But one thing hasn't changed. People used to think the government, and their control of them with the fear injections, were the worst they had to dread. Now I'm the terror they talk about in the quiet coffee shops. I'm the thing the government officials talk about behind closed doors. I live outside all of them. They have their fear, but I am fear.